Welcome to the A-Lister Show. Today we have a very special guest with us. If you know, we've been interviewing movers and shakers, trying to find out people that are doing interesting things in their own niche, the A-listers of their own particular market. And today I'm happy to say that we have the Godfather himself, the Godfather of virtual wholesaling. His name is Cris Chico. He's been doing some really interesting stuff, unique ways to acquire and disposition properties using online marketing. And I'm really excited to dive in today about his tactics, his techniques, where his business is today, and things like that. So, without further ado, how you doing today, Cris?
I'm doing great. Appreciate you having me come on the show, and excited to chat about real estate and about anything else that might come up. So I'm excited to be
Awesome.
here. So thank you.
Great. Yeah, absolutely. So let's start kind of at square one. What exactly is virtual wholesaling?
So virtual wholesaling is a concept that I pioneered back in around 2007, and what it is that a lot of people, when it comes to real estate and real estate investing, they know what they see on TV, what those flipping shows. You know, they buy a house, you fix it up, and then you resell it. A lot of people don't realize, and some of you may or may not, that there's another way of making money in real estate that's great for beginners, which is where you're not even buying the property at all. You're just identifying people that want to sell their property at a discount. And then you are kind of a middleman, not needing a license or anything like that to pass those deals along to investors that are like those guys on TV that want to fix them up and do all that kind of stuff. And you, as the middleman, can make some money. And, that money could be from as small as a couple $1,000s to, I've made as much as on a single deal over $90,000. And now that's the main thing that I do. However, back in 2007, when there was no Google Street View, there was everybody has Google Maps now. There was none of that. People were bound to do exactly this business in their local area.
Yeah.
And that was it. And so I, through a process of experimentation and a variety of different things, I figured out a way to do it virtually, where you could do all these deals throughout the country without ever having to personally meet with the property owners or meet with the buyers or even inspect the properties. And I was the first guy in our real estate industry that ever did that. And so then that became a term in our industry called virtual wholesaling. And then I'm referred to as the Godfather of virtual wholesaling because I was the one that kind of pioneered that whole concept of doing deals like this virtually.
Yeah. Okay, great. So what's your favorite part about virtual wholesaling as opposed to, the traditional way?
Well, I think there's a couple layers to it. In general, I believe that I'll answer your question in layers, right? Because I have to. Layer one would be real estate. Layer two would be wholesaling, and layer three would be virtual wholesaling. So I believe that real estate is a great opportunity for everybody out there, because no matter what happens, no matter what comes and goes, there's drop shipping and all these variety of different ways of making money. At the end of the day, everybody needs real estate, and there's always an opportunity where you can find something that you can buy low and sell high. Wholesaling is like the best way for anybody to get started in real estate because of the fact that it doesn't require you to buy a property and potentially put you at risk that you make a bad decision and now you're out tens of thousands of dollars because you made a bad choice. And then virtual wholesaling is just kind of layer the icing on the cake, meaning that you can do it from home, you can do it from your laptop and never have to physically inspect any properties or meet with any property owners. So to me, it's like a stacking of opportunities. First, you have real estate, then you have wholesaling. Now you add the virtual aspects of it, and now you have an industry that you can make money for a very long time, but in a way that you can do it with a great lifestyle.
Yeah. So is this an actual scalable business model? So how does the scalability compare to working in your regular market, in a local market?
Well, the scalability is a couple of different things. Number one is that, you know, even though you hear on the news about the real estate market being up or being down, real estate in general is very localized. So although somebody might say, oh, the real estate market is horrible market right now, there's segments of the market where you go into one city and it's flourishing and then people can't buy any properties because everything just goes quickly. And there's other places where everything is a big turd and nobody wants to buy anything. And so what happens is that if you are in a, if you're in a market that's really tough, then you're not stuck in that market. Now you have the opportunity to expand your wings and operate in a variety of different markets. So what that does is that it creates a it eliminates a lack of dependency on any one market. So that if you're
Mhm.
doing deals all across the country, if your neck of the woods is just not really a great market, or maybe you live in a small town in America and there's not that much going on, then you don't have to be stuck there. So that's the
Mhm.
benefit of doing this business virtually. One of the main benefits. And I think so. Is that what you were asking? I just want to make
Yeah.
sure. Okay.
Because a local market, right? You may live in a smaller market, even a mid-sized market, where you're really restricted to the amount of homes in that area. But with virtual wholesaling, you have access to a nationwide market, but the scaling challenges may be different.
Yeah.
So,
So what happens in our with regards to in our business, it's really, if you think about it, it's not a real estate business, it's a sales and marketing business.
mhm,
Meaning that we don't need to know anything about repairing properties. We just need to learn how to market to find these individuals and be able to learn how to communicate with them on the phone so they feel comfortable in doing business with us, because those technical parts of real estate are things that we don't really need to know about. In terms of scalability, you know it depends on the strategy. Meaning that in the beginning, as you're starting out, your main impediment is going to be leads. You need leads. You need humans, because you could be the most amazing real estate investor, but if you don't have any leads, you're not going to make any money. But you could be the opposite. You could know nothing and have a ton of leads, and you'll make money, right? You'll stumble onto money. So the biggest impediment to most people starting out in this business is leads. You
mhm,
get to a certain point where now, if say you're doing 3 deals a month, and an average, so you by yourself can, anybody by themselves can easily do, $250,000 a year in wholesaling. Just them, a laptop and no other staff. Once you then start to grow above that and you want to do 10 deals a month, now you start to get hit into other problems, which is, you need more humans, you need more people to handle all the leads. So initially the scaling is more of, you need more leads, but eventually you get to the point where now you can generate, and we do online marketing, so we can generate as many leads as we want to. And so now the scaling is an issue of, we need more people to be able to handle. So you
mhm,
then need to hire more people in order to scale. And then, just for give everybody's context sake, for give everybody context, either you could get into this business and maybe you have a full-time job and all you want is a deal every couple months. You can do that. You can decide, I want to make $1 million a month doing this business, and there's people doing that. So it runs the whole spectrum. It just depends on you, your goals, and how far you want to take it.
yeah. So tell us about how you've been able to scale your business, kind of when you got into using online ads and working the nationwide model to where your business is today.
Yeah. So our initially we were always doing virtual, but at the very beginning, this was maybe around 2000 up to 2016. We were doing a lot of old school marketing, which is doing direct mail, where we're sending out, getting lists of prospects, and then sending them postcards. But as the internet, obviously became a thing, I say that with sarcasm. Then there was online marketing, and so I learned online marketing, specifically started with Facebook, and then now, which we can talk about now, we can effectively generate leads on Facebook, Google, and by Google meaning Google pay per click, Google YouTube ads, all the different campaign types. And then recently we started also generating leads by running ads on TikTok. And I'm
Mm,
not a TikTok fan. I mean, there's no, if you are, that's great, but I don't go on TikTok and make videos dancing and or watch any TikToks, but that doesn't mean that I can't advertise. In fact, we hire people to be the video person for TikTok ads.
mm,
Um, and then my model is a little bit different. And this is where, everybody's business is different. So the way we scale, we've tried this a couple of different ways. We can scale an unlimited amount of leads.
mhm,
Now, the challenge that we have had in the past is that then we have to hire people. We have to go out and hire salespeople and train them and everything else. And our business right now primarily is dependent on clients. So our model is that we help, we help investors either that are in the business or maybe starting out. We set up all of their ad campaigns, everything. We do it for them. All they have to do is turn them on, and we show them how to operate it. They generate a bunch of leads, but they need help because they're brand new. They don't know how to talk to sellers, and so what happens is they then submit. They can submit those leads to us, and then we partner with the students. So all the
Oh.
deals that we have right now pending are all student based, meaning that if we don't help the student get leads and help them move along, then we don't get deal flow. And so then now, whenever we close on a deal, it's always now as a model, it's with a student. So we
Mm.
scale with, because at the end of the day, how many people can we hire? There's people out there that have teams of, 10 salespeople, but, at the end of the day, there's only so much, you can continue to scale that, which some people have, or you can do like we do. So ours is more of an enabler. We want to enable people to get into the business. We help them with the ads, and then we partner with them on the deals. And then now they make money, we make money. Eventually they'll go out on their own. But hey, in the process, so that's our model of how we've scaled.
So I want to know a little bit more about that. So you find someone that's interested in getting into real estate wholesaling,
Right.
and you'll set up their Facebook ads and help them to where all they have to do is turn it on. At that point, they're getting motivated seller, or at least talking to sellers, talking to people.
Yeah.
And when they find somebody that is a motivated seller, they get the address, they get some photos, they get all the information. Now they hand that over to you, and then you have the expertise in order to help close that deal and
Yeah.
find a buyer for it. Is that
Yeah, so
right?
depending, it's correct. I'll add a little bit of more information. So, if let's say you're the student, we set you up with the ads. Now you're getting leads, and we'll give you some training so that you know how to talk to these sellers, etc. But
Right.
you're not ready to negotiate just yet because you don't know pricing and that sort of thing. So there's two layers. One is you could talk to the property owner, just get some information, just have what I call a customer service friendly conversation. Just gather some information. If they ask you a question that you don't know anything about, you just say, you know what, that's a great question. I'm going to make a note so that when our team contacts you back, then they can go ahead and answer that for you because that's beyond my level of expertise. So you feel comfortable with that conversation. Now, at that point, then you submit the lead to us. And internally, I do have a salespeople that leads goes over to them, to my internal team. And then we split the deal we have a split. Now, if, say, for example, you move further along after a month, you feel more comfortable, and with our training, now you feel comfortable where you're starting to negotiate with the property owner, and now you feel comfortable actually putting a property on the contract under our supervision. Now you want us to help you in finding that buyer. So now you can now submit the deal to us, but because you did more work, then you'll make more money from that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And eventually you get to the point where now you do the whole deal yourself and you don't need us anymore. Right. So it
Yeah.
goes in stages. It depends on like what your level of comfort is. It also depends on like with these online campaigns, you can generate a lot of leads. So sometimes the students say, you know what, for now, I'm just gonna handle the talking with the sellers and putting them on the contract, and then I'm just going to give all the leads, the deals to you guys to find the buyers because I just want to keep on doing this part of the business and eventually until I'm ready to do that other part. So we kind of give a couple different options. It's not set in stone, and it's not like every single lead you have to send us in one way. Like if you were a local real estate investor in your neck of the woods and you got a lead and you knew the business and you're like, I don't need Chico, I don't need his team, then you don't have to send us the lead. But what we're doing is we're setting everything up, and then the way I describe the setup is, it's like if you want to drive a car, so you have a couple options. One option is you can hire a limousine driver, and you do nothing. So that's like an agency. If people hire an agency, they run their ads, and you're going to pay the most money because they're going to pay you. You're going to pay them monthly to go ahead and handle all the mechanics and everything, right? Another option on the opposite side is that you want to drive a car, and I'm going to send you a kit, and you're going to spend months in your garage trying to put that car together, right?
Yeah.
That's more of a do-it-yourself. So we're kind of like in the middle. Like when you go to the dealer, you buy a car, they don't They build it for you. They deliver to you, and then they teach you, like, here's how you turn on the ACs. Here's how you do this. Here's how you do that. Here's how you make sure that, if you get a flat tire, when something goes wrong, here's what you got to do next. And sometimes you call the dealer and you're like, hey, I can't fix this. Can you help me? That's what we do. So like we're kind of in the middle ground, because also I believe that, like, you as a business owner, and you started to run ads as a business owner, I think it's important for you to learn how it all works. Eventually, you might decide that you want to take the limo ride and you want to hire an agency, or maybe you want to hire somebody in your team. But it helps that if you did hire an agency in the future, that you knew what was going on, because then now you can know if they're BSing you and they're giving you a bunch of crap about why they can't provide any leads, and you're like, hey, I've done this before. I know what needs to get done. You're not doing your job. I'm going to fire you.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that it's a benefit to you as a business owner to learn that, because it's a valuable skill. And we've had people that learn how to do Facebook ads for for the real estate business, but then they have another business, like you have a home services business. So, and then they're like, oh, you know what? Now I'm taking the learnings from real estate, and I'm like, oh, I can generate leads from my own business.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that I believe that you're learning a very valuable skill when you learn to market online. So we look at ourselves as an enabler of that, right? We're building up the skills, and then we're applying it to real estate, which is a great place to to do deals. And the average deal is 15K, right, on our average deal. So there's a lot of money to be had in the industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm really interested to know, you started out, a lot of your content is about, generating the leads, and I've seen some of your content about analyzing leads. But it even seems like that's the part that you're helping other people do. And then now you're kind of using, like, crowdsourcing this leads. And then you guys are almost focusing internally on the disposition side. I don't know, is that accurate?
Yeah,
And then also, tell me about the disposition process for you guys, what that looks like.
Well, disposition, it depends on the. I'm going to go back and then going to answer your question. So the thing that I think about is that, I'm in the real estate business, but I'm also a coach, and to a certain extent, right? Typically with coaching, like, if you pay me a bunch of money, and then I give you all the books and tapes and everything, and you don't get a result, then I'm not saying I would do this or other people would do this, but theoretically, like, there's nothing lost on my end. Why? Because you gave me a bunch of money, and if you didn't do the work, then hey, it's not a big deal. You go away, but I still have money in my pocket. And so the reason kind of we're looking at this model and the shifting of us in this model is that I look at it as a kind of it's a win-win, right? The student is paying, in essence, for a lot of operational things, because we have a team that sets up all the accounts. It's not, it's not like we push a button and everything gets created. Like, everything is done by hand. Everything is created in the student's account. That means that the student, if they're not tied into us long term, right? If they want to leave, everything is done. Everything belongs to them. So it takes a bit of work to do that. And then our thought process is an incentive on our end, so to make sure that they're successful, because that means that if everything works as it should, they're going to send us leads, and we're going to make some money. And so now there's an incentive on our side where, like, we also want them to succeed because we want deals. Now, in terms of the disposition process, the lead comes to us, and we have an internal CRM, and it rotates between the people that I have here. So, you might be a client and you might be working with 2 or 3 people on my team simultaneously, right? Because because of the way the distribution works. And then we'll look at that deal, and then we'll determine if that deal is, number one, if it's a good deal. But number 2 is, if it's a good deal, there's typically what we're doing is either we're doing a wholesale deal or we're doing a novation, which is I don't know if you're familiar with novations, but that's another way of transacting.
Let's learn about that too. Let's talk about that a little bit too.
Yeah. So wholesaling is where, where we're just strictly getting a property that's really discounted, and we're gonna sell it. We're gonna pass the deal to an investor buyer, and he's gonna do a fixing up and then later resell it. So the spread has to be significant, and also it has to be in an area where there's a lot of flip activity. So it can't be in a small town. But we get deals where maybe the spread isn't that much, but if you could take that deal and you can put it on the multiple listing service and sell it to a buyer who is going to live in it, then you're going to be able to get more money.
Yeah.
Or it might be in a smaller town where there may not be a lot of investor activity, a lot of other investors looking for deals, but it's a market that when you look on Zillow, it shows like, wow, there's a lot of activity here, and it's a viable deal. But in those markets, the novation is really what we use in order to do those deals. Which in
Mm,
essence, a novation is, it's a term used for, I don't know how deep we want to get into it, but it allows us to take control of the property without actually owning it, so that then now we can take it and put it on the multiple listing service and be able to sell it for more money. And
mm,
we're offering to the seller a concierge service where the
mm.
seller doesn't want to deal with the agent. They don't want to deal with maybe a clean out of the property and a lot of those other things. And we're very transparent with them. I said, here's what we can do for you. We'll partner up on the deal with you. The way here's the way that the paperwork flows. We're not taking ownership of the property or in any capacity. It's done like a regular transaction, but now we're going to take all these things that need to be done in order for the property to be sold on our hands. We're going to take it all the way through, and in the end, we're going to make a little bit of money, but you'll get more money, and you don't have to deal with all this hassle. And
Yeah,
that's, big picture of innovation. Obviously, if you're familiar, there's a lot of lots of finer details that go into that,
sure.
but in a nutshell, that's what it is.
How much of your deals end up being wholesale versus novation these days?
A larger percentage of the deals are novations now. It depends on I would say, I have to clarify that. In what we do, right? A lot of our deals right now are more novations than we are doing wholesale. That's number
Wow,
one.
interesting.
Now, the reason for that is also because of our marketing. We're marketing, we're marketing nationwide. So
Hmm.
unlike a conventional real estate investor where they're marketing in a very specific area and it's a very populated area, their opportunities are primarily going to be wholesale deals, right? But because of the nature of the marketing that we do, because we get all these small little towns, we have opportunities to do deals in those areas. But the only way to really facilitate those deals is through novations, right? So it's kind of like it's forced upon us by the marketing that we do, and but also in these smaller markets, you don't have a lot of competition. So you also are in a situation where you don't have to fight with other real estate investors for the same deal, and to us, I think it's like it's a nice. It's a nice opportunity, meaning that if I always look at it, a great opportunity is a stacking of other opportunities, right? So if you're a real estate investor and if you know how to run digital ads, which if you go to a room of real estate investors and you start asking them out of 10 people, hey, do you know how to run Facebook, Google, and TikTok ads? The majority will say no.
Right.
Maybe one will say yes. And that one that says yes, that's an anomaly, which means that now you have the upper hand. But now if you stack on that the fact that, hey, I can do wholesale deal, I can do innovation deal, which means I can take advantage of more leads, then all of a sudden now you have a better advantage, right? So
Hmm.
I look at it as a kind of as a more holistic, more rounded approach to making sure that you can monetize whatever leads come your way.
Yeah. So with novations, and we can go, as superficial or as deep as we want to on this, but with novations, is it something that you guys are owning completely, or do you typically pass on that novation contract to an investor?
Well, it's an end buyer. When I say so generally the paperwork is we signing a contract. The contract has clauses and provisions that are in there allowing us to novate. We sign typically a power of attorney with the seller that gives us the right to be able to list the property. And then the original contract has an novation clause that allows us to substitute that agreement with another agreement. So the way it works is, let's say that you're the buyer and I'm the wholesaler, and so we sign an agreement. So you'll sign, let's say, just the contract and the power of attorney, and now that enables me to put it on the market. So now let's say Sally comes across and she's like, I want this deal. She's going to live in it, and so we're going to go ahead and do a contract with her. Uh, and we signed the agreement, let's say, with the listing agent. So we're putting them on the multiple listing service. So we have a listing agreement with an agent, etc. But at some point in the process, now when that buyer wants a deal, then novation is the term for that is the technical term is a substitution of agreement. So that means that then I'm going to get out of the way, and the end buyer and the seller are now going to be the two parties to the agreement, and I'm going to supply documents to the title company that allow us to get paid at closing the
Hmm.
difference. right?
Gotcha.
And I'm trying to, with all these things, right? We can get really
Yeah,
deeply technical, and
sure.
I'm just trying to explain it in a way so that people understand, the concept,
Yeah.
because our time is limited here.
Yeah. So basically, what you're doing is with wholesale, you have to go out and find investors. Now,
Yeah,
investors are going to want the properties to be at a deep discount, and there has to be enough play in there for you as a wholesaler to get paid,
right.
which is really tricky,
Yeah,
especially when you have inflated home prices and you have buyers that don't have access to a lot of capital with high interest rates, and not a lot of movement happening these days in the market. Now, with Novation, what you're able to do is you're able to now seek retail pricing based off of your mediocre wholesale deals. Now you don't have to have as much in there because there's one less hand in the pot. You're
yeah,
cutting out the investor. You're going directly to the retail end buyer.
yeah,
That's really what you're
100%.
doing there.
Yep.
And that's how you've been able to adapt, because some of the smaller markets that you're picking from, because you're doing nationwide marketing, they don't have the activity, or the buyer activity, and the seller isn't as motivated. They don't want to discount their price so much. So you're able to find these solutions for the seller, and that's really what you're doing, is you're finding solutions for the seller, and that's the
Correct.
service that you're providing to them.
Correct. I would say that, sometimes, I'm not saying, just for clarity's sake, a lot of people ask, oh, are you taking advantage of people, right? Because you're buying the property at a discount. And nobody ever, or are you stealing equity? Like sometimes people say that. The fact of the matter is, nobody ever, we're never, that's not the case, right? I always give the example of, I had a car that I was selling. It was a truck, and I owned it free and clear. Now, I could have taken that truck and I could have put it on Craigslist, and I could have gone through the parade of phone calls and people to try to get the best price possible. But I didn't want to do that. I was like, oh, no, no, we're not doing that. I need to get rid of this truck right away. So what did I do? I took it to the dealer, and I knew the dealer was not going to pay me retail value. I knew that the dealer was going to take that car and then take it and make money from it. But I was perfectly okay with that, because I was willing to give that dealer part of my equity for for me to have the convenience of not having to deal with it at all. And that's what we're talking about here. People
Mhm.
that are willing to give up some of their equity because they would rather have something else, and that's what the service is that we offer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So going back to wholesale, I'm wondering, how confident are you before you actually end up locking up that deal that you'll be able to sell that deal to an investor? Like, do you already start reaching out to people? Do you already have investors in that area? Or do you say, I'm about 65% confident that I can move this deal, so let's go ahead and get it under contract? And
Yeah,
then if it falls out, then you just kind of deal with it then.
yeah, that's exactly right. Typically, we're looking. The way we evaluate properties is we use Zillow 100% of the time.
Wow.
So with Zillow, going into a market that I've never ever known before, I can easily determine the activity in the market. Like I can go in and look at, okay, what's active, what's pending. And then let's say, for example, I go into a market and I look at in that area that there's 30 properties active. But then if I toggle and I look at how much is pending, and I see that, if I click on the little button on Zillow that says pending, now it shows me a greater number of properties. So it shows me 50 properties, only 30 of them are active. Well, that's a ratio, right? Because if 50 and 30 of them are active, how many of them are sold? 20 out of 50. So that means 40% of the inventory is on the contract. That means that it's a good market. So generally, we want that number to be 30% or above. Then we also look to see what's active in that area. And it's just a matter, like if a seller's has a deal, say he has a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, and you look to see what other 3-bedroom, 2-bath houses are available for sale in that market. And let's say you find that they're all asking 175. And now this owner has a handyman and he's asking, let's say he's asking 110 as an example. You got him down to 110. Now you look and say, what else is available for 110? And now you find that, oh my God, there's nothing available for 110. And so now you have a pretty good idea that, oh, wow, this is a pretty good deal because everything else is hyper expensive in this market. And then now the probability is higher that this might be a good deal. And so you're never going to get to 100%. You get to, like what you said, 65, 70%. And at that point, then now you place the property in the contract. There's clauses and provisions in the contract which allow you to cancel the contract if you're not able to find the buyer, so that you can get out of the deal without having any sort of financial repercussions. And then you go out and you now attempt to find a buyer. You're not going to find a buyer for every deal, but it's a numbers game. If you put 10 properties on the contract, you're going to have, one that sells that you thought, I have no idea what somebody, like, why this guy bought it, but he loved it and he wants it. There's some that you thought, oh my God, this is amazing, this is going to be a deal, and it wasn't. But it's a numbers game. If 7 out of those 10 work out, then you've made a whole lot of money. you know
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. So how much time do you give yourself to find a buyer? And do you start reaching out to buyers before you have it under contract to gauge interest?
No, we don't do that because of the fact that we want to have that property secured.
Yeah.
When we go out and talk to buyers, we vet them and make sure, that, hey, they're legitimate, but you never know people's intentions, and we want to protect ourselves because when we have it on the contract, nobody else can get the deal.
Hmm.
The other thing is that if you go to a buyer before you put on the contract and you get their advice, then you somehow they feel that you're committed to them because they helped you out analyzing it, and you don't want to do that. You want to be able to take your deal that you got and you want to try to make the most money from it, which means is taking it out to as many buyers as you can. So you'd also, I'm not a fan of going to buyers first because that creates a sense of obligation and it limits your ability to just try and see if you can get the best price possible for your deal.
Hmm.
And a lot of people do that because they're afraid of taking a chance on a deal and not having it go through. But that's just the nature of the game. Not
Yeah.
every deal is going to work out. If it doesn't, you just let the seller know and shake hands, part as friends, and that's it. You move on.
Hmm. How long do you give yourself to find buyers? 14 days? Can you go to 30 days? What does that look like?
Typically, our typical inspection period is 10 business days, which, because it's business days, then automatically is for 14 calendar days.
Hmm.
And some people place properties on the contract and they put like a 30-day inspection period. To me, my belief is that if you hustle and within 2 weeks you can't find somebody, you're better off just moving on to the next deal. Because
Hmm.
also too, at the same time, we want to be, we want to, we want to make sure that we don't string the sellers along. Meaning, if
Yeah.
you have it you have an inspection period of 45 days. I've had it where some people have canceled the contract 2 or 3 days before. And to me, that's bad business. So we
Yeah.
want to just know right away, as soon as possible, if this is going to be a deal or not. And if it isn't, we want to let the seller know. And so we just put 10 business days, which ends up being 14 calendar days.
Yeah. So what's the customer experience like? I know a lot of times with wholesaling, you're coming at the seller, telling them that you can buy the property, that you're going to be paying the property. And now you may have a couple of investors that come buy the property,
Yeah.
and the seller is now looking at these people like, who are these people coming around my house? How do you deal with stuff like that?
Well, if you're the seller, I would just tell you, hey, so the reason why we're able to buy properties all throughout the country is because we partner up with investors in your local area. And we partner with those investors because they're going to be our boots on the ground. They're going to be the one that's coordinating with the contractors and just helping us be able to take this transaction from beginning to close. So
Mm,
what will happen is that once we're going to go ahead and sign the contract, then that is going to initiate on our end to then contact our local boots on the ground partners and figure out which one is going to be the best one for us. And we also want to make sure that they're okay with the scope of work that's required in the property. So what we're going to do is going to go ahead and schedule a time for them to go take a look at the property and just give us a thumbs up. Obviously, you and I have spoken over the phone, and I know that the property is not going to be in pristine condition, and I know it's going to need work, so we're not expecting that. But we just want to make sure that what you're telling us about the property is exactly what we see. Like, you know, who knows if a meteorite came down from the skies 2 weeks ago? Now there's a big hole in the roof, and you haven't told us. And
right.
there's actual aliens from Mars living in there. Now we have like a big problem with our hands,
And you
right?
make it funny, yeah.
Make it funny, yeah. And so they'll laugh and they'll be like, yeah, that's not the case. Okay, I understand that. Now, on occasion, sometimes we might have to get a couple of investor partners because sometimes, depending on the scope of work, they may feel uncomfortable with getting the work done. And we'll try to do that as expeditiously as possible to make sure that we can move it along to that next stage, which is to set it up for closing. So
Mm,
that's how we present it. So it makes sense, right?
yeah,
Logically.
totally.
And so that's the way we present it when we're dealing with getting people into the property.
Hmm. Okay. So I want to tell my story and how I ended up encountering you and why I was so excited to have you on this podcast. I've been following, so my background is in marketing.
Hmm.
I am a strong Facebook ads marketer,
Oh,
and
okay.
Yeah. So, I love Facebook ads. My favorite thing about Facebook ads is that you can go from idea to lead generation in a matter of hours. You
Yes.
don't, it's absolutely free to get started. There's no website. You don't have to pay a website. You don't have to, there's no web hosting. You don't need to have any followers. You can literally create a page, make a few assets for that page, and make an ad, and you can have your ad up and running within a few hours. And that is the incredible power of Facebook ads. So I come from a background in marketing and Facebook ads. And so when I started thinking about how I can, I'm in the home service industry before. So I
Yeah.
have a company where we are doing house washing, roof washing, gutter cleaning, window cleaning, carpet cleaning. And it kind of occurred to me one day, like, why am I wasting my talents trying to find a $200 carpet cleaning in my local market when I could, fuck, excuse me, got a little excited there. Um, when I could be using my energy and skills working on a $15,000 real estate contract.
Yeah.
And that's when I started thinking, okay, who else is doing this? Who else is in this space? And something so amazing about your content was your ability to be so transparent and open, and really helping to teach other people how to get into this and how to do what you do, and showing the whole backside of it. And knowing what I know about Facebook ads, I realized this guy knows exactly what he's talking about. He has a lot of experience in this space. So I kind of used some of your videos, and I started doing Facebook ads, marketing myself to find properties in certain areas. One of the first challenges that I encountered was that it's very, very challenging to niche down into a particular market.
Yes.
The second you do that, your cost raises 10, 20, 30 times. It's not
Yeah.
even like a small percentage. We're
Yeah.
talking like a large magnitude. So, okay, we're sticking to wholesaling. The second, nationwide, second challenge I encountered was we're now dealing with small markets. We have small markets all over the place that there may not be buyer activity, and there's just not a lot of activity happening. And so that's why. And I was watching some of your other videos about how now you're talking about you have a deal that you're getting to a deal before other wholesalers are.
Hmm.
So you're they're not at the point where they're on pre foreclosure or foreclosing.
Right.
They're before that stage. And
Yeah.
so you are not competing with the same people that are calling these people constantly. So that's one of the benefits there. I actually, we're closing our first deal. We should close. It's an escrow. Should close tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
We just made a baby commission, and we made $6,000 on a commission check thanks to your videos. So I
Wow,
want
that's
to say,
excellent. I didn't know, I didn't know that till we got on here. And
yeah,
what city, or where is it located, town wise?
Fort Dodge, Iowa.
Have you ever been to Fort Dodge, Iowa?
No,
Did you
no,
even know Fort Dodge, Iowa existed?
no, absolutely not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
So it was it was
that's
it
pretty
was a
cool.
whole process to it, from there's so much learning experience involved. But yeah, you're putting the net out there, you're seeing what you catch, and you're talking to all these sellers. And it really is just about building a relationship and talking to people. Having the proper CRM in place is super important. And just feeling confident and stuff. So and to get there, by the way, we had gone through other contracts that had fallen out for
Yeah,
various reasons. And man, you got to have some cojones to be in this game, because first of all, you're talking to all these buyers. You have to break the hearts sometimes of sellers that
yeah.
you sometimes can't get the deal done. And so it's a tough game. But yeah, so that one of
I
the
would say
biggest
that,
challenges.
yeah, the first deal is so important, because the first
Mm,
deal, the learning that you have from that one deal, from the actual, of all the sellers you have to speak with to get that one deal, and the buyers and everything else. It
yeah,
that I always tell people, like, that is a hell of an education, better than any course, training, seminar. I don't care.
yeah,
Because now, number one, I think the first deal, number one, is that proves that a lot of times we see people out there making money and making this, using tactics and strategies, and you're like, I think it's real, but it doesn't become real until you do it,
yeah,
right? So now it
yeah.
becomes real for you, that, yeah,
Hmm.
this work, I can do it. And now it's just a matter of, like, now doing it more often, right?
Yeah.
Doing it more, and again and again. I'm
Hmm.
excited. I'm
Yeah.
excited.
We had
Um,
the proof of concept, that's the important thing.
yeah,
So we bought the property for 29,000, and we found an investor that came in and purchased it for 35,000. So $6,000 spread. I
yeah,
have some partners that I'm working with that are doing. By the way, this cost me a lot more than I expected it to. I don't even know if I'd say a lot more than I expected it to, but I probably spent around $3,000 in ads in order to get this deal.
probably because you
So
had to like figure a lot of stuff out on
there's
your
so
own.
much learning. Like I probably easily like half of that budget was probably spent in experimentation. And
Yeah,
so as you start to dial in your experiments and understand what how far, what's working, what's not, a lot of that ad budget gets wasted along the way. And so the more you do it, the more efficient and the better you
yeah,
become at acquiring these properties. Like I told you, I spent a lot of money in certain markets when I was trying to niche down, and I realized this is
yeah.
not going to work. So I'm not doing that anymore. And so going forward, my ads are going to be a lot more effective and
Yeah,
efficient.
I give you, one of that's I think the thing that we help our clients with is that when we set things up, we set it up and we do it in a way that within as soon as the ads are live, the same day they're getting leads, and there's no
Mhm.
wasted money, right?
Yeah.
Because the great thing about it's a great opportunity with Facebook ads. The negative is that if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to end up spending a lot of money
Yes.
trying to figure things out.
Yeah.
And so to me, that's kind of like that's what we do. We cut out, we
Mm.
tell you, hey, forget about everything else. This is how we do it because we do it internally. Because we still, even though we're doing deals with students, we still run ads internally because we're always testing. So we have a certain number of leads that we're doing on our own just because of that nature. We always got to be testing, tweaking, and figuring out what's working, what's not working. But anything that we do is stuff that whatever the student is doing is stuff that we're doing.
Mm.
But you're right about that. The other thing is, if you were running them nationwide, so the couple of things I wanted to make a comment about. The great thing about marketing and advertising and doing it this way is that you go from being in the selling business to the finding business. A lot of
Mhm.
real estate investors struggle because they have a limited number of leads. So every lead, like you have to take the lead and transport it in a little pillow, right? So it doesn't get injured, right? Because you
Mhm.
know how many leads you have. But when you're
Yeah.
doing marketing like this and you got to dial in, you have leads coming every single day. So that means you don't have to do a deal with everybody. You don't have to hard sell. Now it becomes more of a finding game. You're just looking for the right opportunity because if you generate 30 leads and only one is good, then it's okay because you'll make a lot of money from that one lead, more than
Mhm.
enough to pay for all the marketing, and then you just go find another set of leads.
Yeah.
Then the other thing that I was going to mention is that as when you're starting out, it's always better to do nationwide because especially if you're brand new in the business, you get a lot of leads. Most people need the practice of talking with sellers, so it's better for you to get a lot of people and humans to talk to. But what we do is we target 21 states. So if you look at maps, if you go and search online for maps of the U.S. at night, you'll notice that there's nothing in Dakota or Montana and all of those places. And most of this activity, it's either way west or the majority of it is in the East Coast. For most people, you just focus on the East Coast, ignore New York and New Jersey, and that's all you need to do, and you'll get leads in really better areas. And that's how we do it is you start nationwide, but then you narrow it down to like a grouping of 10 to 15 states. That'll
Mhm.
increase your cost per lead, but it'll give you better quality leads.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, that's great. That's actually something I'm working on too, is like I've been choosing, like experimenting with different combinations. Like, what if I just do California, or just do like the top 5 states, or just do like I saw one of your Facebook ads videos where you chose, certain states that you like or know or you are
Yeah.
working in. So that's really interesting. One of the
But,
biggest challenges.
mhm.
Uh, Go ahead. I'll let you. Go ahead, and then I'll
But
ask after.
the side comment is, but this is more of a technical thing, is that you can run a campaign, the CBO, you can run a CBO campaign with each ad set being a different state, and then you allow Facebook to self-organize itself every day with
Yeah.
whatever it feels that it can find the leads.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So one of the biggest challenges we've had with doing the wholesaling is finding buyers. Now, in one of your videos, I know you talked about Investor Lift and
Yeah.
Propio.
Propelio.
Propelio.
Yeah.
Is that what you're still using, or what are some tactics that you use for disposition?
Well, we're heavy with Investor Lift because it's a great tool. It's like Investor Lift is like a Mercedes Benz,
Mm,
and then Propelio is like the Ford. They'll
mm,
still get you to the grocery store, But
Okay.
if you can't afford the Mercedes, then then you're still gonna eat. Okay.
Yeah.
So investor lift, a basic one, and I don't know, their pricing changes, but it's a 5-figure investment for the year to sign up with them. So if you don't have any deals going, you're brand new, your money should be spent on marketing. Propelio is a tool that we use only to find the buyers. And the difference is it's more manual work. Whereas Investor Lift will supply you with a lot of emails and phone numbers already for those buyers because other people on the platform have used them before. Propelio, you'll say, hey, I want to know how many landlords or how many people as an investor have recently bought a property in this area, and they'll give you that information, but they'll give you the corporation name, and now you got to take that corporation name, put it into Google, and try to figure out where that is.
Hmm.
So they both are the same. The best buyers are always going to be the people that are buying already in the area. And
Hmm.
that's the best advice. The best advice is you find other experienced investors that are doing deals, right? When you're doing wholesale, and that are used to working with wholesalers, that are used to paying assignment fees, and those are the ones you want. Those are the
Hmm.
pros when you're doing wholesaling. When we're doing novations, now it's a different game altogether because we're putting the property in the MLS, and that takes care of the buyer side. But for me, my advice is that. And another tidbit that you can do is, for example, you can go and find properties on Zillow near the one that you have that look like they're renovated. And if you look on the tax records, you might see that, oh, they just bought the property 3 months ago. It looks like they put a lot of work because the Zillow pictures look amazing. Now you can go and find whoever that person is through the corporation and searches, and then just reach out to them. And the conversation is easy. Hey, my
Mm.
name is Cris. I'm a real estate investor wholesaler. I noticed that you bought a property in 123 Main Street and you closed on it. And I have another deal in that same area, and I'm looking to assign my contract. Wondered if you might be interested in picking up other deals. And that's it. And they'll say, yeah, tell me the details, and you work through those details. And if then you just continue to take that conversation along and get them inside the property. But it's relatively easy when you've got a good deal, then
Yeah.
everything else becomes a lot easier.
Yeah, that's something that stuck out to me too in some of your content. You talk about how disposition starts with proper acquisition.
Yeah, the
Means
money is
making
made
sure
when the
you have a
deal.
good
Yeah.
deal. Hmm.
Now, one thing, I don't know if you're going to mention this or not, but the other thing that you're doing Facebook ads, the natural transition for you would be to do TikTok ads.
I was going to ask you about that. So tell me about the other platforms that are working for you.
Well, TikTok ads, I group them together. I group Facebook and TikTok together, and then Google. Facebook and TikTok are easier for beginners because the cost per lead is less, and it's an easier platform to get leads from, even with a high degree of, with a high margin of error.
Mm.
Um, that versus Google, right? Google is less forgiving. There's a lot of things in Google that have to be
Yes.
put in place correctly when you set up the campaigns. If you set up the things incorrectly, you don't put the negative placements or keyword lists, and Google will take all your money.
Yes.
Okay.
Quickly.
Yeah, quickly. So Facebook and TikTok, the benefit of TikTok is that it is now you. I'm not on TikTok. I don't watch TikTok. Every time I watch TikToks, I feel like my brain was in a blender and it just barely escaped. Okay. So you don't have to be in TikTok to run ads. In fact, you don't even need a regular TikTok account to run ads. You don't need to be on camera. We hire people on Fiverr for $75. They do a video, and that's the video that we use for the creative. Number two is that whatever creative you use on TikTok will also work on Facebook, because now you can take that video, put it into your campaigns on Facebook, and you can use them both. The other thing I found is that with TikTok, we get a lot more populated areas with the same targeting. So let's say in Facebook, you target 21 states, you're going to get a certain number of those leads that are just in the middle of nowhere. You're like, I don't even know how people live over here because there's nothing,
Yeah.
right? In TikTok, you get a lot more populated areas, a lot more. And if you set up Facebook, you've set up the infrastructure already to enable you to use TikTok. TikTok has the same mechanism. You could use lead forms on Facebook. You could use instant forms on TikTok, and that's what we recommend. And the campaigns, it's a little bit different. Facebook, if you set the campaign up right, then and the way we set it up, day one you'll get leads. TikTok is a little bit like those old school lawnmowers. Remember the ones that used to like pull the string and like, okay, this doesn't start.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes a couple campaigns of running for $25 a day for a couple days to get it going. Once it gets going, then it gets going. And the cost per lead is like, if we target 21 states, we can get a cost per lead of about $16 to $20, which is phenomenal. Good lead quality. And we're asking a lot of information from the sellers. We're asking them like how long they lived at the prop, if they're the owner, not the owner, if the property is listed, what the condition is. We're asking a lot of questions. So I think that, like, for you personally, I would definitely say you'd want to go and be operating both. The other reason for operating both is that you're not dependent on one or the other. Sometimes, as you know, being in the marketing space, Facebook is a little bit finicky.
Yes.
Sometimes it treats you like your mother would. Sometimes it treats you like the prison warden.
Sometimes they decided to deactivate your account, for no reason, and then you got to go through the whole appeals process.
Yes, and I've had that before. Fun. So it's just always nice to have two options. So I would recommend everybody get started with Facebook and TikTok, and then once you start doing deals, then you could migrate to Google. With Facebook, you can easily start with a budget of $25 a day. You can pause that, but you can say run it for 10 days, pause it. Maybe you're inundated with leads, maybe you're low on your budget, and then you restart it again 10 days from now. So you can get away with a lower budget. With Google, I mean, you got to. My feeling is you got to put in at least $3,000 into that bucket of Google, just because it needs data, it needs more information. Now in Google, everybody knows search. We can do search. We also do Google YouTube ads. So that's a relatively newer type of campaign. There's less competition. There's also performance max campaigns. There's also demand gen campaigns. So there's a lot more campaigns than just search. And right now I think that there's not a whole lot of people on TikTok ads right now. So I think that that's where a good opportunity is. And with Google, a lot of the new campaign types are where there's opportunity, especially YouTube ads. There's really nobody running YouTube ads for real estate investing. But again, if you're a beginner, I wouldn't recommend that. There's just like, we have a process internally that we follow for setting up people with Google ads, like the whole gamut audiences. It is the longest checklist that we have out of everything. It's almost like, I think, almost approaching 100 steps. Wow. Just to get everything in place, right? Yeah. So that's like we're building the Ferrari in that scenario, right? You go.
So I'm surprised to hear that. I mean, when you think about the demographic of TikTok, you don't really think about homeowners. You think about Gen Z, but there's the case. Gary Vee talks about underpriced attention. People, it's a newer platform. People have the same assumption that I have, which is that maybe my target audience isn't on there. And that's one of the reasons why they decide not to do it. Therefore, it tends to be a little bit underpriced, which is super interesting. And then you've had success there.
For everybody's sake, we get that question all the time. Well, the TikTok is for young people, not older people, not on there. When we look at our analytics, TikTok provides you with, and once you start getting conversions and you start running ads, it'll give you analytics on your audience, like age, everything. And you'll see that 55 plus, 35 plus is all the conversions. And the majority of them are over the age of 55. So they're on TikTok.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
They are definitely on TikTok. Now, we fall the same thing as Facebook. We fall into the housing category. So unfortunately, we can't say, I only want my ads to show the 55-year-olds. That would be amazing.
Yeah. Right.
Maybe we'll get leads for like $2. Who knows? But it is still good.
Yeah. Great. Okay. So I have a question for you real quick, going back to disposition side. So when you use Investor Lift, are you using Investor Lift for to find buyer information, or I know you can also post deals on platforms like Investor Lift. So are you doing both, or just getting the data and then calling them?
We're using both, but however, posting the deal on Investor Lift isn't enough, because a lot of investors opted out of their marketing because they were just being sent so many emails. So there's a lot of legitimate investors that are not getting any emails from them and don't even pay attention. The ideal thing would be, they have another thing called Artemis mode, which is where you can, if you have a deal, you put it on the marketplace, and then it'll tell you, oh, these 10 other buyers were looking at deals around your deal or bought, and then you would just reach out to them directly. Hey, John, I saw that you were looking at this deal 123 Main Street. You want to check out mine. But so when in doubt, outreach is always better. Because
Mhm.
also too, the thing is this: if you are brand new to business, it's important for you to get feedback. If you're a buyer, I reach out to you and I say, "Hey, I got this deal 123 Main Street. What do you think?" And you're like, "No, not for me." Then I want to say, "Well, tell me, is that because of price or something else?" And then you might say, "That deal, I would never buy with a 10-foot pole because of XYZ." But now you have more data. Now you're like, okay, that's understandable. So maybe I need to price it differently. Maybe
Yeah.
I pay too much. And then so you might have a price in mind. You might say, "Oh, I'm going to make 35 grand on this deal," and you talk to buyer one, buyer two. By the time you get to buyer two, you're like, "Okay, I can't make that much because this thing is a turd, so I'm going to have to reduce my price." And now you make that adjustment when you talk to buyer 4 or 5. So
Mhm.
that, I think I think getting on the phone with these buyers and talking to them is key. And it's
Mhm.
pleasant conversations anyway, because they want
Yeah.
to hear from you if you got a deal, so it's not a big deal. And
Yeah.
even
Yeah. Totally.
the sellers are not, a lot of people, we got a lot of customers that don't want to do cold calling anymore. And cold calling, if you're cold calling to get leads, then you're getting yelled at every single day by the sellers.
Mhm.
The benefit is that these are warm incoming leads. When we call the seller, it's like, "Hey, Mr. Seller, my name is Cris with National Property Buyer. You filled out a form about selling your property, and I'm just wanting to reach out to you and see if we can get additional information and see if the property fits. If we can purchase your property. Do you have a few minutes?" And that's it. And then you go right into it. So there's no like, it reduces a lot of the friction points that a lot of real estate investors have initially.
Definitely. Yeah. I'll tell you, I've done cold calling also, and I can say that speaking to people that at least have inquired about your services is so much more pleasant than
Yeah,
cold calling random people out of nowhere.
100%. Yeah,
So, I want to mention that, with your program, what you offer is so amazing, and it's got to be such an amazing benefit to your partners and students because, um, you know, you're able to shortcut both time and money when on the people that you work with.
yeah,
Because if somebody were to, and now I have a lot of experience, but if somebody were to look at your videos and decide that they wanted to get it started, they can get it started themselves. They certainly can. However, a lot of times somebody may offer you a course, in which case they may save you time, but it might be a $10,000 course, and now they may not save you too much money in the short term. Um, but what you're doing is you're offering them an opportunity to save time and money because they're going to be spending a lot less money on ads because they're going to have a higher return on investment sooner than if they were to go out and make all of these mistakes and learnings on their
yeah.
own, which I guarantee you, unless if you've never been in this industry before, there's going to be learning that needs to be had. So what you're offering, which is a one-click solution that helps them get up and running as soon as possible, giving them the mentorship and the education and the training that they need to get up and going, and they're going to be able to have more efficient spend. They're going to be able to achieve their goals quicker. Just an amazing option, and I'm super excited that you have such a fantastic offering. Can you tell us a little more about your offering and what you offer to your people?
Yeah, as you were saying, I was saying, if you live in a house, we live in a house. If you were required to build a house from scratch, including the plumbing and everything else, you probably wouldn't live in the house, right? I wouldn't live in the house,
No, no way.
all right. And so we take care of that work because you're in the marketing that the getting setting all that up, installing pixels and configuring websites and everything else that goes behind the scenes, it's a lot of work. And if you're not used to doing that, it's a big obstacle course just to be able to get that up and running. Same thing as a car. If I had to build the engine myself, I would take the bus because it's not happening. So what we do is different than a regular coaching program in that we I look at it, what we do, more as a service than coaching, because our intent is also like when we work with a student, we onboard them, meaning, and then within a relatively short period of time, within a week, is everything is set up, ads ready to go, and now they're going to turn them on. Now, and our objective is we don't want to drown people in information, so we're not going to give somebody 20 hours of videos to watch. We're going to give you just enough information. I call it just in time learning, just enough
Yeah,
as you need it, because the real learning happens out in the field. Like
totally. Yeah.
and so for us is, there's so many people that I meet in this industry, people, students that have spent 30, $40,000 in coaching, and they have never even talked to a seller,
Mm,
maybe a couple handful of them. And we
mhm.
have, our objective is, the way we look at it is, we want to compress the time that it would normally take to learn this business. Instead of you taking a year or 2 years, we're going to compress that into
Yeah.
like 3 to 6 months. So you're gonna get the learning, and that's how I learned. When I got started in the business, I was fortunate enough to go under the wing of a local investor, and I helped them. I didn't make that much money, but I helped them buy and sell that year 50 properties
Hmm.
myself. He had other people doing it. You know how many property owners I had to speak with in order to do 50 deals? A lot. The education that I got was the education of 5 years in 1 year.
Yeah.
But the only way that happened is because we were in the trenches every day trying to get stuff done. And
Yeah.
I had the benefit of him, because whenever I had a question, whenever I had an issue come up, he would be like, okay, here's the answers. And so we approach it in that way. Like in the program that we have, like, sometimes when people join programs, they get like one call a week. Like if you have a question, now you got to wait like a week in order to
Mm.
get your calls answered on the Zoom. We have Zoom calls every day, sometimes twice a day. And the objective is, they're not coaching, they're office hours. They're like, as if I had a virtual office. You're like, I'm going to hop into Chico's office hours. I may have a question, or maybe I just want to listen in to what everybody else is asking, because you can always learn from other people. And so I look at it as, we offer a service, we get you up and running with the ads, and then we provide you all the resources you need in order to, to make that work. But at the same time, we're your safety net. So that way you can use us, because you know that if you send us a deal, we want to make money too. I have a
Hmm.
team that, and the way that I do it, is whatever. If you send us a deal and we make money, I I split it with the team, so they make money. It's not like Chico gets all the money and then they're running around doing, no. So everybody is bought in to the fact that we want your leads. And so the only way for us to get your leads is for us to set up campaigns that work and that you're happy with, and that we train you appropriately to talk to sellers. So you send us the good leads, and then we close them and we make money together. In fact, I have a check here. This is just recently from one of my students here. It's a small check, for $5,000.
Beautiful.
But here's the interesting thing. This student works a full-time job. He put the deal, he put the deal on the contract, but the deal was falling apart because he was working full time and he didn't have time to deal with all the issues with the title company. So he said, can you guys help? I said, we'll take over the deal. We took over the entire deal. He didn't have to do anything. We handled all the problems. There were a lot of problems with the deal, but in the end, we make money, they make money. So that's how I
Hmm.
look at it. And to me, that's exciting because, like now you did your first deal, and like this student did this first deal. When you get your first deal, that sets in motion everything else, because you're like, okay,
Yes.
I think I can do this. And
Hmm.
now the pain and suffering you dealt with on the first deal is going to be a lot less on the second and third deals, right? Because you get to
Yes.
avoid all those pitfalls.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. So a couple more questions before we head out. One thing we haven't talked about is how you analyze a deal. No, meaning, what is the calculation you use to determine what price the deal needs to be at? So you know what the comps or the after repair value is. Some people say 60%. Some people say 70% minus this and that. What's your calculation that you use?
Yeah, I don't like to use. We use a calculator that will work through, like, if an investor bought this house at 110,000, 150, and they're paying closing costs to buy, closing costs to sell, they're going to do this much in rehabs, they're going to have this much hard money. What is their profit at the end? The problem is, I'm not a fan of the percentage of price evaluation, because that's a moving target. If you have a deal that the end value is, say, 300,000, yeah, maybe you might be okay with, say, buying that property at 70% of market less whatever you're planning on making, let's say 15 to 20 grand. So you might buy that at 60% market value. But as that price starts to decrease, those percentages go out the window. If you're a seller and you're coming to me with a property that the end value is 80 grand, I got to buy that house at 20 grand. I mean, there ain't that's like 20% of less that.
Hmm.
So those numbers, I think, are flawed in my opinion, because I like to calculate based on hard numbers, meaning that, okay, he's asking 120. It looks like from what he's telling me that it needs 25, 30 grand worth of work, right? Hypothetically, I'm going to plug that in. I want to make 15. Now, what does that up? Say if it's 100 plus 30 in rehab plus 15, that's 145. That now someone is going to take over my deal for 145. Then I have to think, okay, what are they going to do? And commissions. And then at the end, what is that? What's that price that they're gonna? What's their profit? And I think that that's the way it has to get done, because now it gives you a more realistic evaluation, because every property is different. But again, as you shift from high price points to low price points, those formulas are very fluid. So I'm not a formula guy. I'm more about punch in the numbers to a spreadsheet and then figure out, is there enough of a margin there for me to sell it to a wholesaler? And it
Mhm.
could be no, but we might say, hey, you know what, this might be an innovation deal instead, because that's the best way for us to maximize the opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah, got it. Especially when you're talking about 30, let's say that the profit margin to the investor after all said and done is going to be 30%. But what's 30% of 80 grand? Like, who's going to do that deal? Like,
Yeah,
no one's going to put their capital and time up to make $15,000 at the end of the day as an
right.
investor rehabbing a project, taking the risk, putting their money out there. So that's why I could see where there needs to be a certain amount of cash, hard numbers involved to the
Yeah.
investor in order for it to make sense to anybody, despite what the actual percentage says.
Right.
So,
Because at the end of the day, the investor doesn't care about the percentages. They care about how much money am I tying up on this property, how much time and effort, and how much is the profit afterwards. They
mhm.
don't care if it's 70%, 60, or 50. That's all that matters is the hard numbers. And so I think that if you train yourself to look at the hard numbers, then you have a better conversation with the buyers anyway, because they'll be like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, I think this guy's looking at it with the right filter.
Mhm. Yeah, especially when you get into California,
Yeah.
you don't need 30% on $1 million property in order for it to be a good deal for investor. They may be
Right.
happy making $100,000 on a deal that they
Right.
can be in and out of in 3 months, and that might only be 7% profit margin at the end of the
Right.
day.
So it depends on the market.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
absolutely. Well, this has been a super insightful chat, and I want to thank you and commend you, because one of the reasons why I'm a subscriber and that I follow you is because you are so transparent and have so much good information, and that's because of your business model, where you want your followers, your subscribers, your students, your partners to succeed, because when they succeed, you succeed. And so I highly recommend anyone that's interested in getting into the wholesaling industry to check you out, check your website out, check out your offering, and definitely subscribe to Chico's website, YouTube, and all the social media and stuff like that.
Yeah, you
Um,
can find me. You can find me. You can go. You can just. I always say, I know I've arrived when Google can find me. If you type in Chris Chico into Google, it'll they'll tell you my website. It'll also have my YouTube channel. And even if you misspell my name wrong, it'll say, "Did you mean Chris Chico?" That's when I know that I arrived. Yeah, that guy.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing. So Google Chris Chico, everybody, subscribe to him on all the different channels. I want to thank you so much for taking the time today to speak to us.
appreciate it.
And I'll be continuing to follow you and definitely learning so much more. Thank you so much
Thank
for your
you.
time. This has been the A-Lister Show with another amazing guest. Subscribe to this channel as well. We're going to continue to bring you amazing content, amazing guests, and let's all learn and follow this journey together. See you at the top. Thank you.